What if at the very moment you sign the end of a story with someone, fate decided to write a new beginning? Monica and Robert were ready to go their separate ways. No tears, no goodbyes, just the silence of someone who has said it all. But it only took a second, an unexpected feint, a beat out of sync, for everything to change. She was pregnant. And what followed wasn't just about motherhood or regret. It was about love, trauma, control, silence, and a question that has never stopped echoing. Is it possible to love again someone who has broken you from the inside? This is not a story of easy reconciliation. It's a raw, painful, and real journey about two people who had to lose themselves completely in order, perhaps, to truly find each other. We don't have anything else to say, do we? Monica kept her eyes fixed on the pen she was holding, her fingers slightly tense on the cold metal. Robert's voice cut through the silence like a blade, emotionless but with undeniable weight. "We've said it all. All that's left is to sign," he replied, looking at the pile of papers in front of him, as if they were just another closed contract. The registry office smelled of old paper and fresh paint. The walls were oppressively white, the table between them too wide for someone who had once been so close. Monica felt the throbbing in her neck, a pulse she couldn't control. She took a deep breath and signed. The stroke was firm, but not effortless. Her name, still linked to his, was now just a formality. The end recorded in black ink. Robert picked up the pen and without hesitation scribbled his signature. Quickly, neatly, as he always did when he decided something was no longer worth his time. "There you go," he said, pushing the folder to the center of the table. "It's done." Monica nodded. There was nothing to add. No tears, no pleas. What could have been said had already been swallowed up by months of silence and blank stares. She stood up slowly, feeling a slight ringing in her ears. The pressure in her chest seemed to have increased, as if the air itself had gained weight. She tried to smile at the attendant, but the gesture died before it was born, and then the floor disappeared. The registry office spiraled, the sound distorted. The world, which was already silent, became even more so. She tried to grip the edge of the table, but her fingers failed her. Robert only noticed when he heard the dry sound of her body falling to the floor. "Monica!" The word came out more like a scream than a call. He was at her side in seconds, kneeling, trying to lift her up without knowing where to start. Her eyes were closed, her skin pale, her lips parted as if she were trying to breathe. "Monica, look at me. Talk to me, please." The registry office worker ran to the door, calling for help. Another woman arrived with a glass of water, which was useless at that moment. "She's fainted," someone said. "I can see it," Robert answered, his voice shaking. For the first time in a long time, he didn't seem in control. His heart was beating so hard that it seemed dislodged from his chest. Everything around him was jumbled, faces, voices, noises. But his attention was all there, on the woman who minutes ago had become his ex-wife. The woman who, even at the end, was still able to make him feel afraid. Real fear. When the ambulance arrived, Robert didn't let go of her hand. Not when the paramedics put her on oxygen, nor when they laid her on the stretcher. "I'm going with her," he said firmly, staring at the paramedic as if that wasn't a choice, but a fact. And then he got into the ambulance with his heart in his hands. Monica was still unconscious. But what Robert didn't yet know was that this fainting spell was just the beginning of everything that was about to change. The hospital was immersed in that cold, unbearably white light. The smell of antiseptic took over the air, and even surrounded by rushing nurses and patients murmuring in pain, everything seemed too quiet for Robert. He was sitting on one of the chairs in the corridor, his elbows resting on his knees, his face between his hands. He didn't know how long it had been since he had entered the room, but it felt like forever. Monica still hadn't woken up, and it was driving him crazy. He stood up when he saw the doctor approaching. His body reacted before his mind could process anything. "So?" she asked, her voice hoarse, almost choked. "She's stable. It was just a sudden drop in pressure, but we've decided to keep her under observation until we're sure everything's okay." Robert nodded, although the words didn't calm him down. He needed to see her. He needed to be sure with his own eyes. A few minutes later he entered the room. Monica was lying down, her skin still pale, her hair scattered on the pillow, as if trying to reorganize itself with the rest of her. The monitors blinked in time with her heartbeat, and that, oddly enough, calmed him down. "Are you all right?" he asked, even though he knew she still couldn't hear him. Her hand rested on the sheet. Robert touched it, hesitantly, as if that simple gesture had the power to crumble him. Then her eyes opened. Slowly, vaguely, as if they were returning from somewhere very far away. "Robert," she murmured, her voice scratchy. "I'm here," he said, taking a firm hold of her hand. "You scared me, Monica." She tried to sit up, but her body didn't respond. "What happened? You fainted right after the registry office." She closed her eyes for a second, remembering. The divorce, the signing, the end. "I'm fine," she murmured. "It was just a lot of stress, maybe." "It didn't seem like stress," he said, with more emotion than he had intended. Before she could reply, the door opened. A doctor walked in with a folder in his hands and an expression too sober for ordinary news. "Monica, we have your tests." She straightened up slightly, her eyes alert. Robert turned to face him, his hand still clasped in hers. "The fainting was the result of a drop in pressure, which is relatively common, considering your condition." "What condition?" Monica asked, frowning. The doctor paused, a short one, but enough to make Robert's heart race. "Congratulations. You're pregnant. 3 months." The silence that followed was brutal. No sound in the room, just the heart monitor emitting its rhythmic beeps. "What?" Monica asked, as if she had heard wrong. "Pregnant," the doctor repeated. "You must already know, but—" "I didn't know." She cut him off, looking directly at Robert. He couldn't speak. He just stared at her, surprised, shocked. Something opened up in his chest, a raw, uncomfortable emotion. "Does this change anything for you?" she asked, without disguising the tension in her voice. Robert swallowed dryly. I don't know." And for the first time in a long time, he looked lost. Monica remained silent for long minutes after the doctor left. The word "pregnant" still echoed in her mind like a strange sound, difficult to assimilate. She felt suspended between two worlds, the one that had ended with a signature and the one that was beginning with a life growing inside her. Robert stood beside her, quiet but restless. He ran his hand over his chin, then through his hair, as if looking for a way out of what even he didn't understand. 3 months, Monica murmured at last. 3 months, and I didn't even notice." He nodded, his eyes fixed on some point on the wall. "We were so disconnected that I didn't even notice," she added, more to herself than to him. "Are you going to—" Robert stopped in the middle of the question, as if afraid of what would come next. "Do you intend to go through with it?" Monica stared at him, and the coldness in her gaze was cutting. "It has a name, Robert. It's a son. And yes, I'm going to go through with it." He looked back, as if he'd been slapped. "I just meant that it's a lot, especially after everything—" "All what?" "That you gradually erased me, that you turned my space into a place where only you could fit." Robert opened his mouth to reply, but said nothing. Monica took advantage of the silence. "Do you want to know how it started? Because I remember exactly." She looked up at the ceiling, her eyes fixed on a distant memory. "It was in Rome. Do you remember?" Robert nodded slowly. It was impossible to forget. "The first time we met, over coffee in the late afternoon. I was reading a book and you knocked over your cup trying to make conversation. I laughed. I thought you were cheeky and charming at the same time. I just wanted to know your name," he said with a slight smile. Monica sighed nostalgically. "You told me that you saw something in me that nobody else saw, that I seemed like someone who was always on the run, but who deserved to be reached. And I reached you." "You did," she agreed, her eyes darkening again. And then you caged me." Robert winced but didn't deny it. It was true. He knew it. "At first it was good," she continued. "It was light, intense, fun. We'd laugh about anything. We made plans that didn't have to work out, just for the pleasure of dreaming. And then you started correcting my laugh, my clothes, my words. My world became smaller, the size of your ambition." Robert had no excuses. He knew exactly what she was talking about. He knew that every suggestion disguised as care was, in fact, an attempt at control. "I just wanted to protect you, but you overruled me." Silence settled between them again, but now filled with memories. Of everything that was beautiful and what was lost along the way, Monica rested her hand on her still, discreet belly. "This is mine. No matter what happened between us, I will protect this life, with or without you." And for the first time, Robert saw that he wasn't the one in control. The next few days were shrouded in an uncomfortable silence. Robert tried to call a few times, but Monica ignored his calls. She needed time to breathe, to reorganize her thoughts, to put every feeling in its place. The pregnancy, the separation, Robert's emotional reappearance, everything seemed to be messing up the ground beneath her feet. But time didn't heal everything. Sometimes it only revealed the open wounds more clearly. It was on a rainy morning that she decided to go out. She was going to the market, a simple everyday thing, when she bumped into Daniel on the sidewalk in front of the building, an old work colleague with whom she maintained a light friendship with no hidden intentions. "Monica," he said, surprised. "Are you all right?" She smiled, tired but sincere. "As someone who's just signed a divorce and found out she's pregnant, yes, I'm fine." Daniel let out a short laugh, but then kept quiet. There was respect in his gaze. "If you need to talk, I'm here." Monica thanked him, and he said goodbye with a gentle squeeze, but he didn't see that someone was watching from across the street. That evening, Robert appeared at her door. Monica hesitated before opening it, but gave in. "What do you want?" "We need to talk." "About? You were with him today." She stared at him in disbelief. "Are you watching me?" "No, but I did. As a matter of fact. And did you think it was your right to come here and demand explanations from me?" Robert took a deep breath, trying to control himself. "I just thought. After everything, I deserve to know if you've moved on." Monica crossed her arms, feeling the heat of anger rise through her body. "Are you listening to me? Do you really think I have the time or the inclination to move on with someone now? So it's not true? It's none of your business, Robert. Not anymore." He took a step forward, and his voice became lower, but more intense. "Do you think you can exclude me from all this? That you can just erase what we've been through and take me out of the equation as if I didn't exist?" "I'm not trying to erase anything," Monica said firmly. "I'm just trying to breathe, to live. Without someone telling me all the time what to do, what to feel, who I can talk to." Robert lowered his head, defeated for a second. But then he looked at her again. "Do you still love me?" Monica laughed, a nervous, bitter laugh. "Love isn't the problem, Robert. The problem is everything you've built on top of it. Control, fear, silence." He didn't answer. He knew she was right. Monica walked to the door and opened it in a clear gesture. "Don't look for me for a while. I need some peace." Robert hesitated. "Are you going to run away?" "No, I'm going to survive." And when she closed the door, it was final. For the first time, Robert felt that he was actually outside. The apartment was plunged into a sick silence. Robert paced back and forth, his eyes fixed on his cell phone, which remained silent. He had already checked for signal, restarted the device, looked for any missed messages. Nothing. Monica's absence had a new weight to it now. It was no longer just the absence of a wife, but of something he was barely beginning to understand. A family that had sprung up just as it was falling apart. He sat on the sofa, his face hidden between his hands. The memories came like disorganized fragments, the light touch of her skin in the hospital, the sound of the heart monitor, the word that disarmed him inside. pregnant. She's gone, he muttered to himself. But why does it hurt so much now? It was a question without an immediate answer, perhaps because for so long he had believed that he could control the timing of things, that Monica would be there, waiting for him to heal, to mature, or to come back with the right words. But she was no longer there. She had left, and left a vacuum in the form of silence. He opened one of the drawers in the bookcase and pulled out an old box of photos. There were pictures of Rome, scribbled notes, movie tickets. Everything seemed to be from another time, almost as if they had belonged to another life. On an impulse, she picked up the landline, the only number Monica could answer without recognizing the source. She called once, twice. On the third, the hospital voice answered. "Mr. Robert?" The name spoken on the other end of the line sent a chill through her stomach. "Yes, it's him. We need you to come immediately. It's about Monica." The air became thin. Has something happened? Pregnancy complications. She was admitted a few hours ago. She's stable, but she needs to come. We need a quick decision. The ground disappeared from under his feet. What kind of decision? The medical team will explain at the hospital. Please come as soon as possible. He hung up without saying another word. The sound of the line being cut seemed definitive. Within minutes, he was in his car, driving through the city with headlights that blinded him, horns that he couldn't even hear, and a heart that was beating faster than he could control. When he arrived, he was taken straight to the obstetric emergency ward. The doctor was there, hands clasped, face tired. She arrived with intense pain and bleeding. "We've done what we can so far, but there's a real risk of severe complications. We need an authorization." Robert looked through the small window in the door. Monica was unconscious, surrounded by monitors and tubes. Yet there was strength there, a woman who faced everything, even in silence. "Tell me what's at stake," she asked, her voice breaking. "If something happens during the procedure, we'll have to choose between saving the mother or the child. We need someone close to us to decide. And you're still listed as the emergency contact." Robert felt his legs falter. He leaned on the wall, trying to get some air. "I can't lose them both," he whispered, like a prayer. And in that instant, he understood that to truly love was also to bear the weight of choosing when everything was hanging by a thread. The clock on the wall seemed to mock Robert's anguish. Every second that passed was a hammering on his nerves, a reminder that time, the very time he had always thought he controlled, was now his executioner. On the other side of the door, Monica was fighting for two, and he for a thread of clarity. The doctor appeared in the corridor with a countenance that mixed professionalism and urgency. "Mr. Robert, we need to take you to the operating room now. Her condition is unstable. We have to be prepared for the worst-case scenario." He nodded, but the gesture seemed to float on a body without an anchor. If we have to choose between the two of them, who should we save?" The question came as a sentence, bluntly, without anesthesia. Robert's eyes widened, as if he had heard it in another language. "What?" "There's a risk of serious bleeding. We can't predict it. It may not happen, but if it does, we need a registered decision. There's no time to consult someone else." He took a deep breath. Once, 2 times. He tried to find the right answer inside himself, but what he found was Monica's face, exhausted, struggling, yet determined. Then he thought of his son, still nameless, still a mystery, but real. "She would choose the baby," she said at last, low, almost as if she were telling a secret. She would always protect those who hadn't yet had the chance to live. The doctor didn't hesitate. She nodded slightly and disappeared down the corridor. Robert stood still, as if the floor had become liquid. He sat down. He ran his hands over his face. And then he cried. Not like someone who was weak, but like someone who loves to the point of bleeding inside. He cried because he hated having that power, because for the first time his decision wasn't about him. It was about her. It was about someone he barely knew, but who already carried the weight of a legacy. Time passed as if in slow motion. Nurses came and went, doors slammed, voices in the distance, but it all seemed too far away, until she heard rapid footsteps. She stood up instinctively, as if her body knew before her mind that something had changed. It was the doctor. "They're alive." Robert felt his chest collapse. His knees almost failed him. Both of them. She smiled for the first time. It was tense. There were complications, yes, but we managed to stabilize Monica in time. The baby was born a little earlier than expected, but he's fine. He's in the incubator, just in case. He tried to say something, but the words stuck. He just nodded, with tears that he didn't ask permission to let fall. "Can I see her? She's recovering, but she's awake. She's asking for you." Robert walked towards the bedroom like someone crossing a broken bridge, hesitantly, but decisively. When he opened the door, he saw Monica pale, her eyes heavy but alive, and alive in a way he hadn't seen for a long time. "Did you choose the baby?" she asked, her voice weak. He came over, sat down on the side of the bed, and held her hand gently. "I chose what you would choose." For a moment she said nothing. She just looked at him, a look that mixed pain, gratitude, and tiredness. Then, for the first time since it all began, she cried, not out of weakness, but because she had survived, because they had survived, because, even broken, they were still there, whole in what really mattered. The maternity ward smelled of fresh flowers and restrained murmurs. Monica slept lightly, like someone who had come back from an abyss. Next to the bed, a chair occupied by a different Robert. His shoulders were still heavy, but the look had changed. He was holding a cup of tea in his hands. He wouldn't force anything, no presents, no conversation. He would just be there, sitting there, waiting for her to want to or not. When Monica opened her eyes, the first sound she heard was the porcelain lightly touching the wood. She turned her face and saw the tea. "I brought tea," and silence. "Choose what you like." That's what he said, and it was the kindest thing she'd heard from him in years. She didn't answer straight away. She just stood up a little, tucked the pillow behind her back, and looked at the man who, for so long, had invaded everything with his words, now offering her what she needed most. Space. Silence. "Is a good choice today," she murmured. Robert nodded, smiled slightly, and looked down at the floor again, as if he were there not to fix it, but to support it. That was it. He wanted to be a support, not a crutch. Monica looked at the cup. It was warm. Chamomile, just the way she liked it. That said more than any apology. For the first time in a long time, she felt cared for, not watched over. "Have you been sleeping?" she asked, breaking the tension. "A little. I think I can now. Knowing that you're all right helps." She fixed her gaze on his. He was there, whole, but no longer the same. "I thought I was going to hate you forever," she said. "That I'd never be able to look at you again, without remembering what I felt." Robert didn't back down. "You have the right to feel all that, and more." She took a deep breath, swallowing back tears she didn't want to shed. "But now, I don't know. Seeing you here, quiet, respectful, it's like another man." "Maybe I'm trying to be," she replied without flinching. "Not because I want to win you back, but because I've finally understood who I don't want to be anymore." Monica remained silent. His words were not promises, and that's exactly why they sounded real. She held out her hand, a subtle gesture, as if testing new ground. Robert held it, without squeezing. He just touched it, and in that touch, a memory came. Rome. The first look, the chill in the belly, the nameless connection. "You still look at me like you used to," she said, almost absently. Robert took a deep breath. This time, with more respect. She smiled. A small but genuine smile. The kind of smile that asks for nothing in return. It simply acknowledges the other person's presence. They stayed like that, holding hands, eyes closed. It wasn't reconciliation. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something rarer. It was presence. Pure presence. Without demands. No hurry. And in that shared silence, a new story began to unfold, made up of pauses, choices, and perhaps love. But a love that finally knew the difference between touching and holding. Time never came back, but curiously, it knew how to sew together things that seemed unrecoverable. Months had passed since the birth. The baby, who now went by the name Luca, slept in his crib, as if the world outside was just a whisper. Monica watched him from afar, arms crossed, a cup of tea in her hands, and a peace that, although still timid, was beginning to take up residence. Robert arrived slowly, as he always did now, with steps that asked, rather than invaded. Did he sleep? Monica nodded without taking her eyes off her son. At last. He fights more than he cries. He pulled you, he said with a smile. She didn't reply immediately. She just let the silence build something between them. It wasn't tension. It was maturity. It was the care of someone who knows what one wrong word can destroy. Robert approached slowly and stopped a few centimeters away from her. He held out a small envelope. What's this? A present. No special date. No commitment. She opened it. It was a letter, handwritten. If you're reading this, it's because I had the courage not to interrupt the process. I wanted to tell you that for a long time, I confused love with possession. And that's why I lost the best of us. Today, I understand that to love is to be, and if one day you decide to be again, let it be by choice, never for lack of choice. Love, Robert. Monica closed her eyes for a moment, touched. She put the letter back in the envelope and held it against her chest. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything they had lived through. Everything that was still uncertain. Then she looked at him. Do you know what's strangest? What? That after everything, this moment here feels right. Maybe because this time we're not trying to make it work, we're just here. She moved closer, slowly, and kissed him. It wasn't a movie kiss. It wasn't frenzied. It wasn't overwhelming. It was sober, delicate. A kiss that promised nothing, but carried everything. When they pulled away, Monica touched his face with her fingers. This isn't a fresh start, Robert nodded. I know it is. It's a choice, a decision. And I choose you. But only if you want me to. She smiled, a full smile, finally. Staying is no longer a duty, it's a decision, and for now, I want to try. He took a deep breath. It felt like the air was finally clean, light, livable. So let's try, one day at a time. No chains, just possibilities. They stood there side by side, watching Luca breathe. And between one sigh and another, the future crept in, silent, promising, in no hurry. Because sometimes love isn't about going back, it's moving on, together, but free.